Hi, this is Kerry Artek with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Mag 7 update for the week of Monday, May 11th, 2026. And I begin with Microsoft as usual. Microsoft threw off a bit of a head fake a couple of months ago when it settled below this significant four-year channel bottom that would typically result in not only a testing of this previous high-low area in the mid to upper 340s, but we were also anticipating the very real possibility for an extended sell-off similar to what we saw from July 25 to roughly February of this year, where we continue to the full channel extension that is presently in the 220s, and you've got a 213 low. But that obviously didn't happen. We came back about a month ago to close back above the structure. That rejection of a meaningful sell signal, it's at least a stabilizer, and oftentimes is an indication of bullish continuation. Now, we've yet to see that. What we have seen, though, is just sort of a stabilizing discontinuation of this big sell-off that occurred from the summer of last year. We do have 405.88. That formation has been containing selling pressures roughly the last couple of weeks, and above which 487.58 is attainable over the next 2 to 3 months. Now, 487.58 becomes clearly indicated if we were to close this week above this descending channel top that is at 422.54. So, if you're a 3 to 5 day swing trader, you can buy 405.88, sell 422.54 all week long. But if we do close above 422.54 at the end of this week, that is sort of a tipping point as we move through the rest of May and into June. Within a month or two, I'd say within about 2 months, by the end of June, maybe by the end of July, I'd say very likely the 487.58 former channel bottom, where we could top out actually on a monthly, possibly even longer basis. So buy signal above 422.54. No good reason to be out or short Microsoft. You want to be long with a settlement above 422.54. I think you want to be a little long anyway above 405.88, then the rest above 422.54. Now, yes, if we do close back below 405.88, that should send the market south into the mid to upper 340s. But this time, we would take it in stair-step fashion. In other words, we would anticipate within a couple of months 344.79 to 349.67. And if we then close below this area, then that full channel extension in the 220s. Let's move on to Meta. Meta, also very similar to what we just saw in Microsoft a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago. We settled below a key channel bottom that spanned about, it goes back to, you could say it begins in this zone here. Let's just call it a 6 to 8 month channel structure. 596.87. Sorry, this is a 1 year. I thought I'm looking at this February 25 and I'm thinking February 26. No, this goes back at least a year, probably more like a year and a half. The 596.87 formation that we did settle below back in late March, anticipating then its sister formation, the more meaningful and longer term 479.73. But that didn't happen, obviously. And what did occur about a month ago was not only pushing through and closing the week back above that channel bottom, that 596.87, but also closing above the high of the low. So this is your zone of support still. 596.87 to 608.64 can absorb selling through the rest of May, and above which we can, over the next 3 to 5 weeks, push on up to this significant pivot point, 693.18. I think this is our pivot point really into later year. We could actually top out here into the third quarter and fall away again. But it would be, if you're looking for a reason to invest in Meta, like through the rest of the year, I think you have a clear rationale with a settlement above 693.18, because then I would expect possibly in as little as 3 to 5 months, but by the end of the year anyway, this 899.62 channel top and climbing, where we could put out an annual high. On the way up, of course, we got a 796.25. Yes, double top potential here for a spell, but I think closing above this classic rising channel, descending channel top is our upward pivot point into later year. Until then, we can fall away back into the low 600 region. Just like Microsoft, if we were to close back below this channel bottom this week at 596.87, that does set up within a couple of months 479.73. So if you want to play the short side in Meta, or if you're long Meta right now and wondering whether you should get out, the answer to that is yes. Get out. If we close this week below 596.87, then within a couple of months, 479.73 is likely, where you can aggressively pursue Meta through the rest of the year, because from here we can round up actually to some variation of this descending channel top. Let's move on to Google. Google did settle above this targeted rising channel top last week. That is this week at 394.90. I think you can still buy Alphabet, or GOOGL is the symbol, the old Google. I think you can buy 394.90, 2 to 3 week swing traders up to 425.89. 425.89 is the full swing from the February high against the March low, and then you just subtract one from the other and then add it back to that high, and it gives you that 100% swing to the upside. It is a balance that can be achieved. We could top out here for a month, fall back to 394.90, but I do think that the settlement above 394.90 does carry with it a full channel extension. I do think within a matter, well, the last time we did something like this actually was from late March into last week. And if that continues going, we could do it in the same amount of 5 to 6 week time frame. But it also took, at this point, June to November of last year, and that is about, 6 months roughly. So it could take longer than that. But I do think over the longer haul, by the end of the year, perhaps 501.17 in reach. If we do close this week back below 394.90, I think that's at least a diminishment, a neutralizing of bullish momentum, and does carry with it, I think, a likely 3 to 5 week target to the downside back to 349.0, where we could bottom out through June and round up again. If we do close below 394.90, we will take a fresh look at longer-term support below the market. Let's move on to Amazon. Amazon threw off a buy signal, as you may recall, back in early April above the 225.38 descending channel top, anticipating 287.80. I think I said 2 to 3 months at that time. We're about a month into this and about 80% of the way there. 287.8, significant 3-year channel top that may contain buying through the third quarter, and we could fall away from there. We would have a significant secondary sign of strength into later year if we were to close above 287.80. I don't see that this week, and I'm not prepared to say exactly where I would think our next target would be, but this is a ceiling of resistance, able to contain quarterly, possibly annual highs, is expected probably by the end of May now, given present volatility, present market momentum above that recent high at 258.60. If we were to fall back and close below 258.60, which I think is highly unlikely this week, then we've got a good high through June and into July. Within a month or two, I would expect bearish retracement back to this 225.38 channel top. Let's move on to Apple. Apple we cover every single week at wickedstocks.com, part of our paid subscription, where we get into a 5 to 10 minute video showing you all the nuances of the 3 to 5 day, 3 to 5 week, 3 to 5 month, and longer term. This is broad brushstroke. We did, yes indeed, close above this 6-year channel top last week for the first time, but we did not close above it by a 1% margin. So there is one case to be made that we are in a buy signal, anticipating the 320s over the next month or two, but I don't think it's incredibly reliable just yet. This week's magic number, 294.34, is 1% above 291.87. And if we can close there or higher on Friday of this week, then yes, by the end of June, I would expect 322.45. And over the next year or two, upward continuation to what is now the full channel extension at 391.59. Now, without the settlement above the red line, that 1%, 294.34, we can ease back perhaps into the 240s over the next month or two. And this would be our aggressive down pivot into later year, then expecting the upper 190s, but we're not there yet. So big test right now. We are above it barely, but not enough, in my opinion, to indicate longer-term bullish continuation. Let's move on to Tesla. Tesla we provide for free every single day on our YouTube channel. You've probably already seen Monday's Tesla report. In any event, 347.63 is a 1-year channel bottom we tested about 5 weeks ago. ago. It wasn't objective below 442.26, a 2 to 3 month target. We reached it in 8 weeks. And following the testing of 347.63, we'd mentioned within 2 to 3 months you can expect upward rotation to 442.26 and climbing. And we are about 5 weeks into that now, and we could see 442.26 this week, the 6th week, a month and a half later, where we could top out through June and fall away again. We could trade inside of this band in two-sided fashion, I should say, between 347.63 and 442.26 as we continue into the third quarter. If we were to close this week above 442.26, then I think within 2 to 3 months, 3 to 5 at the most, 541.3 is likely. This is a 6-year long-term rising channel top that we have yet to test, and it can absorb weekly buying pressures. Annual buying pressures when tested, and I would expect it by the end of the third quarter if we close this week above 442.26. Until then, we can top out here and within a month or two fall back to this 347.63. Closing below 347.63, which is not going to happen this week, but if it did, we enter a 3 to 5 month sell signal down to 225.33. This horizontal channel bottom able to then contain selling for the rest of the year. On to NVDA. NVDA we also cover every single day at wickedstocks.com. This is broad brush stroke only. We did test that channel top last week, and it was a slightly different number on the daily chart. 194.39 still able to contain selling into the third quarter, and above which still anticipating the low 240s over the next 2 to 3 months. Last week's settlement above that previous October all-time high could actually yield a 240.35 potentially over the next 3 to 5 weeks, with the way this thing is playing out, where we actually could top out on a quarterly basis. Now, downside, if we do close this week, which is highly unlikely, below 194.39, expect 177.49 within 2 to 3 weeks, and I can draw it right now. This channel bottom in the mid 160s, 165.52, within about 3 to 5 weeks of closing below 194.39. But we're not there yet. We remain bullish into the third quarter above 194.39. That buy signal has been in play now for a full month. PLTR, not part of the Mag 7, but we covered it anyway. We've been mentioning you can bottom pick the mid 120s. We've been telling you that for months. We did test that in early February. We rounded up to insignificant resistance, but we still have this former channel bottom that you could sell on a weekly basis, 151.43. Our breakout to the upside into later year is a settlement above 163.90. Until then, we could fill this wedge out between 125.41 and 163.90 for the next 2 to 3 months. If we close above 163.90, we have a significant buy signal. Wrong chart. We have a significant buy signal into later year. Within 3 to 5 months, I would expect this 239.00 rising channel top. Downside, if we were to close below 125.41, we have a go with sell signal. Within a month or two, 90.27, and within 3 to 5 months or less, the 63.40 to 66.12 region. I think that pretty much covers it. I kind of raced through some of this, but you can always rewind, right? I'm going to leave it at that. I'll be back, of course, next week with another edition of our Mag 7 report. You have a great week.